Hi, this is Wink, and I'm here today with Eric James Stevens. He has a PhD in rhetoric, and I am going to ask him what that means. Um, but he has been very active on LinkedIn, and he's been helping people with their LinkedIn profiles. I consider him an exceptional person in what he has been doing and in how he has been doing it. Really, his LinkedIn profile says that he manages people and products using his aptitude for storytelling with data. One of the talks I like to do is about finding your own voice, and one of those voices is that of a storyteller. Um, it is a very effective tool, and so I'm sure that he uses it effectively. He has talks about compassion, operations, data analytics, etc. He went to Clemson. South Carolina is very near to my heart. I lived in North Carolina for quite some time. So I'm just going to bring him into the conversation here. And again, the first thing I just want to ask, as we have done the pre-interview, we've talked that this might be a part one and a part two interview because you are right now in transition. So if you want to tell us a little bit about what's going on with you, I'm sure you've got. In fact, let me look real quick here on the. It says on your LinkedIn profile, and I don't know how you got this high, but how many followers do you have? 11,208. Of course, we'd all like to know what the secret to that is, too, as well. So anyway, I'm going to bring you in to the conversation and ask what's going on right now. What are you doing in this time of transition? What has happened? What have you done before, etc.? I'm just going to let you talk about yourself, so go ahead.
Uh, First, Wink, thank you for that introduction and the invitation to speak today. It's always a a surreal and humbling experience to hear the words that people use to describe me, and I'm very grateful for what you've said. Thank you. Um, I am. So my name is Eric. I think to answer your question about what am I doing in this place of transition right now, I think that I need to kind of go to. So I like you mentioned, I graduated in 2018 with my doctorate in rhetoric. And we can talk about that and how much fun that is. I think that I earned that because I was good at rhetoric, not because I studied it very well. Um, and I landed a job at a university in Washington State, very near to where my wife grew up. And so we both got jobs at universities there, eventually working at the same one. And we were getting ready to finally settle. And then COVID happened in 2020. And it just completely disrupted things. I knew that I was going to get laid off a lot earlier than most people did, just because I could feel it, I could anticipate those kinds of things, which lends me to why I'm good and successful in the things I'm doing now. But it was difficult. My wife, she was 8 months pregnant at the time. We couldn't renew our lease in our apartment. We didn't know what her teaching position was going to be, and so I was desperately trying to find another job in academia. I was a writing teacher and argumentation and those kinds of things, and the jobs I were applying to, they were just disappearing. Like literally, I'd put it on my list and I'd apply, and the next day it'd just be gone, because nobody knew how bad COVID was going to affect everything, especially higher education. I think we're still feeling those contractions for the next 5 years. I decided that I hated LinkedIn and I was applying to hundreds of jobs and I wasn't getting anywhere. And I decided that I had to do something different. I got some great advice from a friend named Erin, and she said, treat LinkedIn like a game. And so I was like, that's something that I can do. I can treat this differently. And I decided to stop looking for a job and to do what I love, which is trying to help other people create things and that help others. And the thing that I created was a hashtag called Higher Ed, which syntactically is a command. It's not, the audience for that hashtag is not a teacher or an academic. It's for a hiring manager, right? Hire from higher education. That was the argument. That was the premise. I ended up turning it into a 2-day conference in August. It was actually, August 2 years ago this weekend. I held the Higher Ed conference, and to organize that, and this was after, so we had, so contextually, right? My wife and I, we had a baby in a little house that we got a 6-week lease on, right? We had a home birth in May 2020. Nobody knew what was going on with COVID. We took our 2 other kids. We had all of our stuff into a storage unit in Ellensburg, Washington, and we moved to my parents' basement in Maryland, where I filed for unemployment and my wife filed for unemployment. We have 4 advanced degrees between the 2 of us and our 3 kids. And I was working out of my childhood basement that my parents had turned into a storage unit that I had turned into a makeshift office, trying to figure out what to do. And during that summer, I was desperately alone. It was the first time that summer I had called a suicide hotline. It was a very, very difficult thing for me to be living with my parents as someone with a doctorate degree. And I knew that I was not the only person that could be feeling that. It felt like I was, and I was really angry that people were not reciprocating to the pain that I had had. But then I just realized it was just another sad thing that was happening, and I could either complain about my own situation or I could do something. And so I did higher ed. I conducted that summer over 100 informational interviews. I hustled on LinkedIn talking to people, and I said, I'm going to throw an event on these 2 days. I said, you're a savvy career coach. You should, if you're a savvy career coach, you should recognize what I'm doing, and then you should recognize the thing that I'm doing and use the hashtag. And so rather than them preempting or co-opting my hashtag, I invited them to participate in it. And so I said, you love doing webinars. Do your webinar on this day, at this time, and I'll promote you and you promote me. I held a 2-day conference. We had 250 registered people, 280 registered attendees. We had 50 speakers. I had 19 live workshops, and I live streamed and moderated 9 panels, thought leadership panels, where I got to invite experts and ask them interesting questions. And the whole thing, for 2 reasons. 1, I was so alone. I couldn't be alone anymore. And 2, I couldn't walk into a room with a PhD and say, hey, you should hire me. I had to show people what I was capable of. Now I could walk into a room and say, hey, go look at higher ed. Anything that you see there that exists because of me. And that's why you should hire me. And that's exactly how I got my job, as my first job as a data analyst. I was talking to the CEO of an ed tech company, and I asked him the question, what would it take for someone like me to get to work for a person like you? And his answer was, I wouldn't hire someone like you. Here are all the reasons why I wouldn't hire someone with a PhD. And my response was, and I have a doctorate degree in rhetoric, I said, I'd agree with you. Everything you're saying, I agree. COVID has changed everything, though. Here's why you should hire me. I gave him my case, and he said, that's interesting. And 3 days later, he calls me and he offers me a job. And that's when I learned how to become a data analyst. I got 5 months in, I got sat down with my VP of operations, and she said, you've met your 12-month learning goals in 5 months. Good job. Here's a promotion. Here's a raise. And the CEO said, here's some more responsibilities. I said, that's really cool. And then around summertime, around this time last year, I realized there's so much more that I can do. I wasn't happy. I could tell they were not happy with what was going on. And so I left the company. I had left. And in that time frame, I had moved to Tulsa, Oklahoma for one of those remote programs that pays you money. So all this is happening, right? And I go in and I decide I'm going to start an analytics company that I realized was a lot harder than I wanted it to be for a lot of different reasons we could talk about. But I'm an entrepreneur. I was the one selling lemonade on the corner. I was the one selling Pokemon cards. I didn't play Pokemon cards. I sold the Pokemon cards to the other kids. That's what was fun for me. And so I knew that I wanted to do something. And then there's this there's this thing that was before me that for the past 2 years, I have done nothing but connect with hundreds of people. And my premise is that if the job network is hidden, it's only hidden because we are choosing to not engage. I'm one hell of an engager. Engage with me. Before I was like keeping all that in my head. Now I have it in a database, which I learned how to do as a data analyst. I know how to use data. I know as a rhetorician, someone with a doctorate degree in persuasion, the most effective piece of persuasion that you can have is a well-told story with data. And that's it, right? And I was good at it. I was really good at it. And then last weekend, I had another realization. I could feel myself falling into this Educators Network thing, and I could feel it pulling me in to being a full-time thing and going in a million different directions. And that's not what I want to do. I don't want my online persona to be tied to my monetary success. Because as soon as I take someone else's money to advertise or to sponsor something, my voice no longer becomes 100% my voice. When I speak, it begins to be dictated. And I don't like that. I spent a lifetime in academia and before that religion, having my voice struggling to find my voice. And I found it, and I know what I want to do with it, and I know what my principles are, and I know what I don't want to sacrifice. And what I've realized is that the type of leader and entrepreneur that I want to be, if I need to go and make something, I can do it. I am better at taking something that already exists and making that better. And that's why right now, the thing that I have up in the air, like I just said, like, hey, I'm gonna stop creating content. I need to focus on my own full-time employment. I need to figure that out. If you know of anything, let me know. And then out of nowhere, the COO of another ed tech company booked my calendar and said, I want to talk to you. And right now, it feels a lot like the first time a C-level executive talked to me and ended up offering me a job. This time, my starting salary would be 160% more.
You know, isn't it funny how money can really cloud transparency? I guess that's kind of an interesting way to say that, but...
No, and I think that's exactly right. Because like when you look at a career coach, which is what many people think I'm a career coach. Definitely not a career coach. I think that people think that because they see what I'm doing. But my problem with just career coaching as a thing that I struggle with, and the reason that I chose not to make it my profession, I believe it's a valuable profession that people need. The reason I chose it for not my profession is that, one, I felt bad about taking money from people who need money. Like if you're looking for a job, you probably need money. And two, what is my value add? As a career coach, without someone who's going through that thing, their expectation is that I help them find a job. That's not the purpose of a career coach. That's the purpose of a career coach, is to coach a human person to living human experiences. I wanted to connect people to jobs. So now I can take all of these interactions that I've had and I put them into a job seeker database, and I ask questions. I was like, what do you do? What do you want? Like how much minimum salary, desired salary? And I ask these questions. And that way, because that's what I would want to ask someone if someone said, hey, here's a job. And now I have companies who are approaching me because I've spent 2 years saying, I don't want your money and I want to build trust with this community. And now I've been able to accomplish the thing that I wanted to accomplish from the beginning, is to help people without charging them money, but be in a position to talk to companies and have them pay me. And now I have if I connected someone to a job, and if they get a job, that company has agreed to pay me $4,000.
Wow.
Why would I want to charge this person $50 an hour, $100 an hour for 4 hours when I can just be kind and generous and giving? And then when someone over here says, hey, we have money, or even if I've had people come to say, we don't have a budget, can you help us? And my answer is absolutely, because who am I to prevent opportunity just because I can't make a profit. That's a decision I would not be able to make if this was my livelihood. And so I can't make it my livelihood anymore. And I am worth more money. And so I can go get that money. And if people think I'm this, quote, impactful or influential while I'm worried about insurance for my family, imagine how much more helpful I will be when I'm not worried about paying my own bills. And I think it's a reality.
And, a couple significant things you were saying there. People that are looking for a job, a lot of times do need help. Maybe the first job they've had has been through some friend's recommendation that knew someone that knew someone. Of course, networking is always good. But now that job's run its course, they're into the next job and they don't have anybody or anything, and they've never had to rely on any kind of profiling skills, which is what you're doing. And so the thing that's really perplexing is there are a lot of people out there saying, yeah, I can help you do that. I just need $5,000 from you. Tell me something. For those that are out there looking, and you're in the midst, you're in the transition too, but for those that are out there looking, have no clue where to go, where to find this job that they so desperately need. Maybe their rent is coming due at the end of the month. Really, what are the next steps that they need to take just to get in the stream of things so that they get recognized?
My advice is consistent, the same. It's to get active on LinkedIn, engage on LinkedIn. The problem with a career coach, the problem with a credentialing agency like an upskilling program or a Google certification or a degree from a university is that the end deliverable is something or someone else vouching for your ability or capability. Ultimately, when you get into a room with an interviewer, it's going to come down to, show me what you can do. I don't care if you have a PhD, Eric. Show me what you can do. Okay, go Google higher ed. That's what you can do. Even just right now, right? I even said, like, the COO, like, I didn't have to go to a COO and say, hey, give me a job. The COO looked at who I was as a person, my ethos, right? Your credibility, who you are. And then they said, that's someone who I want. Why do people go to a career coach? Is because they don't feel confident enough to say that about themselves, and so they have to pay someone else to do it for them. That sucks. Why? I mean, get a therapist, right? If you're going to go for a career coach, number one, you need to ask yourself, how much are they costing and what do you get out of it? Ask them for numbers. The coaches that I put in my database are either people that I've seen their content over the past 2 years, and it's stuff that I trust. I have an affiliate membership with them, and it's, again, that relationship that I trust. And if that affiliate membership is there, right, I feel confident. This is not an intentional shout out, right? But there's a company that I work with called JobMorph. The reason I love working with them is because they share numbers. They say, hey, look, this is candidate number 85 that we've placed. And now we're recurring, we've brought in, we have earned our clients $35 million in annual salary. I'm a data guy. I'm a numbers guy. The most compelling thing that you can show people, right, is a story with data. If all you're buying are stories, you're being manipulated. If all you're looking at is data, you're going to be manipulated, right? Storytelling and data is manipulation, right? Understand how it works and then use it for good things. Did I answer your question about that? I think the first thing that people should be doing is go on LinkedIn and start typing, start feeding the algorithm data. I had this realization this past weekend that the corporate metaphor, or the metaphor that, universities use, I heard it at Clemson University all the time, that we're a family. Our company's a family, blah, 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 blah. I have a couple problems with that. One is that I think that family is too sacred of a thing to try to bastardize that way. Two, it's such a bad metaphor because in a family, there is hierarchy. And the people who are employing that metaphor want to take advantage of that power hierarchy. Whether it's a patriarchy or a matriarchy, they want to be at the head of that. I think there is a better metaphor that if I ever had the opportunity to lead a team, which I hope happens very soon, I'm not going to be using that metaphor. The better metaphor is a jam band. Is people who are coming together to make music. Like, you are just amazing at the drums. Go be amazing at the drum. And every now and then, you're going to have to lead because you're going to do a solo. Like, you're going to be highlighted. And then also come in and, like, you're the guitar, you're the bass. Do your thing, but it's everybody's just working and jiving together. And for so long, I love, to my core, I love music. And it pains me that I am not musically talented. And then I'm just realizing that every jam band has there's a singer. They're not every jam band, but there's a singer. And that voice, right, is often seen as the lead because it's the thing that can be understood the most. Right? I think that's what made Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers such a heartbreak, is that they were forced into choosing a lead singer. And that's just drove it. And I want that team to be something that where you get excited to go and jam with your band. You don't always get excited to go hang out with your family. You do get excited to go jam. Why can't work be that same thing? There are people who find just as much joy and satisfaction in cleaning up documentation as they do in playing the guitar.
No, you're right. What you're talking about. See, my first degree was in music. My instruments were, piano, bass, guitar. I was also a vocalist, and one of the things I was scholarship to do by the first university was to put together bands and travel and promote the school. One of the things you had to look for, and this goes to what you're saying, one of the things you had to look for is people who knew how to solo and who knew how to play together. Because if you take a soloist and they don't understand ensemble, then all they're doing is soloing the whole time. And they steal focus. They don't know how to jump in the pocket, get together with the other musicians, and form this beautiful picture. And then when the time comes, they can step out of the picture, do their thing, and then step back in. And what you're talking about is exactly that. When you build a team of people that are going to work on a project or actually execute an event, like one of the events you were talking about, they have to dependably get their stuff done within the framework of the ensemble and on time. But if they're only concerned about what they're doing and they don't understand how it fits with everything else, then and especially if you have 2 or 3 people like that, they're all running on their own schedules and nothing is going to get done. So you're at this point now where you're between things. You're in transition. You're getting ready to do some interviews. And I would like to come back in a couple weeks or stay connected till something settles down. And we can finish out the story and the steps that you took to finish the story. And it's not the end of the story by any means, but what I'm saying is you have landed at this next spot. For you to be able to share your story with us, I really think is going to be helpful to others who need to see that same thing happening in their own lives. They may only take away 1 or 2 things, but it may be the critical 1 or 2 things they need to actually make their story get to that next level or that next thing they need to be doing.
No, absolutely. And I think like I love this metaphor that you're kind of playing with, that like I feel like, and I feel like I am coming up on the closing of a chapter, like Eric's COVID chapter, right, is coming to an end, and it included this like cross country move and all these other different things. And I'm so excited to be able to start this next thing. And then, yeah, I would be happy to come back and talk more about it, and like how I ended up doing some of the things that I'm doing right now. But I think what ultimately, I mean, the secret, if there is a secret, is just to start creating content, like be your authentic self on LinkedIn. What would you be posting about if you weren't looking for a job? And start posting about that. It's going to be it's more interesting than what you're probably going to be, right?